Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are actually going to be talking about, which is one of the most popular things that we keep hearing over and over in the real estate climate that we're in today. Why would a seller sell a property to me via subject to? And I'm going to give you guys a full breakdown of exactly the mechanics of why a seller would sell to me on subject to terms. Okay? Before we get on any further, if you feel like this value is given to you guys by this whiteboard content that I'm giving you, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the description below and check out all the nice stuff that I have for you guys there. So every deal starts out with a seller, okay? So you got Mr. Seller here. And there's only two reasons why somebody would sell on subject to. Do you know that reason why, Matt?
Yeah, I would say, like they're in distress, like
Distressed? Okay.
they're maybe under foreclosure, pre-foreclosure.
Okay. Foreclosure. Got it. I like that.
Um,
That's correct.
And the other one would be is they can't sell it on the market. Like the market's telling them, I don't know. Yeah, that would be my second
Okay.
guess.
Yeah.
Maybe the market,
So there's two reasons why, and Matt actually hit it perfectly, right on the head. There's two reasons why a seller would actually sell to you on subject to. One is they're in a pre-foreclosure situation. This means that they haven't made their payments for months and months and months and months. Typically when we find these deals, they're anywhere between 20 upwards to 60. I've even seen as high as $120,000 behind in payments. And that means arrears. That means the bank is now filed a list pendants on the property, which is now called a pre-foreclosure. And the next step is them going into foreclosure, okay? That means if they do not make those payments, the bank is going to foreclose on that property, and the only person who's gonna end up winning is the bank. So Matt was correct. So foreclosure and low equity, right? Low equity is the two reasons why somebody would sell on seller finance. So when you're scouting these deals out as a wholesaler or as an investor, you need to know the exact list that you need to pull or where can you find these deals. And we'll talk about that in a second. But one thing I want you to focus on, it's all about the pain for the seller on these deals. So when I say, when somebody is buying a property via subject to, think about this. If you're the investor or the wholesaler, you need to think about what is the pain. What are the bunnies, like Pace likes to call it? So the seller, every deal starts with the seller, and they're in pain. So I'm going to give you guys a real life example of a property. I just pulled up a HUD statement of a deal that I closed on recently. This deal is called Flemingwood. Okay, Fleming. The property that I bought was in a pre-foreclosure, okay? Pre-foreclosure. This deal actually had $32,000 in arrears. Again, for you guys don't know the word arrears, that means the seller hasn't been paying their mortgage for months and months and months to rack up $32,000. So this is an arrears. Okay? This seller's property's underlying mortgage on the deal was the purchase price on this deal was $342,000 underlying approximate loan balance. That was the loan balance. That was not the purchase price. So loan balance was $342,000. They had an interest rate on the property at 4.75%. And this deal, they can actually get this deal sold several different ways. This seller typically would either go to a realtor and try to sell their property with a realtor. But the problem is if they get an agent involved, they're going to have to pay 8 to 10% to sell their home. That's the national average. That's when you pay closing costs. That's when you pay your any concessions to the buyer's agent or to the buyers that are buying your property, home warranties, etc. They're going to pay 8 to 10% to sell their home with an agent. Another thing that this seller can do is they can do what's called a loan modification. And I'll make a different video on what's a loan modification. But essentially, so you guys understand what happens on a loan modification is these arrears actually get bought out by HUD. So this was actually Mr. Seller who owned this home. This property actually had an FHA loan on it, right? This is a loan product that the seller got approved for at the time when they bought the home in 2022. Mr. Seller bought the home in 2022. So the type of loan that they had was an FHA loan on this property. Now, they can get an agent involved or they can do something that's called a loan modification. A loan mod. A lot of people know this as a loan mod. In this scenario, that the property that I bought, this seller actually got approved for a loan modification. Most sellers actually don't get qualified for loan modifications. There's a whole process to it and they have to do the paperwork properly. I'll do that in another video and talk about loan modifications because this could be an option for you if you're watching this video and maybe you're a seller who is in pre-foreclosure. So they actually did a loan mod, okay? HUD bought out the $32,000 in arrears and put it to the back of the loan, or put it to another lien position on the property as a silent second. So they actually didn't have to pay those $32,000 in arrears up front. So when HUD ended up buying HUD, when they ended up buying these arrears, now when I came in as an investor, I actually didn't have to pay these $32,000. But what ended up happening to Mr. Seller was they actually figured out that even though that HUD was so kind to pay off their $32,000 in arrears and put it as a silent second on the property, meaning like when they sell the property in the future, this $32,000 would be a lien position on the property. So they have to pay the $442,000 plus the $32,000. Now, obviously, the loan balance will go down over time. So the loan balance actually, let's say they sell in 5-10 years, is not going to be $342,000. But so HUD was so kind to actually take the arrears and put it as a silent second. So this seller has a couple options when they want to sell their property. Now, most of the time when a seller wants to sell their property, we all know that you're going to go to an agent because that's what they know. They don't know to do loan mods. They're not educated on loan modifications. So unless someone like us that is educating them, Matt, they're not going to go the loan mod route because there's no one educating them that they can do a loan modification and they don't even know that's an option. Most of the time when a seller sells their property, they're going to go to an agent. Now, the problem with this scenario is this seller actually bought the home. They actually bought the home, okay? They bought this house in 2022. So think about this. When they bought the home at $380,000, they actually only put 3.5% down, which was the FHA loan that they bought. They acquired this property with. So they don't have a bunch of equity. It's not like they put 20, 30, 40, 50% down. So the problem here is when this seller gets the agent involved and they pay 8 to 10%, plus a lot of times they have their arrears, there's no way they're going to be stroking it. They're going to be stroking a check at closing. So this doesn't end up solving their problem. So me as the investor, I'm actually able to come in and buy these properties. And she actually has a $2,600 payment a month. So her payment every month on this property was $2,600. Let me write that down. That's super important. This is payment. Okay? Loan. So you have $342,000, 4.75 interest rate. It's an FHA loan, and the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PITI, is $2,600 a month, okay? Let me put PITI. It's $2,600 a month. So in very rare cases is where I see Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller get actually approved for a loan modification. And a lot of times if they get approved for a loan modification, they can actually keep the home if they feel like the property is not a financial burden to them. So that could be one solution to their problem. The next solution, like I mentioned just a second ago, is getting a real estate agent involved to actually list the property on the MLS. Now, the issue with this is most sellers are in positions to where if they bought a home in 2022 and 2023 and they're in pre-foreclosure or they're low equity, by the time they get the agent involved at 8 to 10%, which is the national average to sell your home, by the time they get the agent involved, they're actually paying to sell their home, right? That's a lot of money. They're paying to sell their home. And a lot of times what ends up happening is this agent doesn't have the right tools in their tool belt to be able to solve Mr. Seller's problem. So one of the best ways I tell investors or a wholesaler, if you want to find these deals that are pre-foreclosure or they're low equity, one of the ways you can actually do it is finding them on the market. Working with agents that are 100 days or more on the market. Meaning listing on the market. They've been on the market for 100 days or more and the property isn't selling. The property is low equity, right? Because remember, subject to is all about the pain, or it's in pre-foreclosure. So what ends up happening is this agent is not going to be able to solve their problem. They don't have enough equity. If this seller, let's say when they bought the home, they put a huge down payment down, maybe 20, 30, 40%, which is actually common. This seller would be in a position where they could pay off their arrears and they could pay the agents commissions, closing costs, and any fees that they were going to give to the buyer, because obviously we're in a climate to where buyers are actually asking for a lot of closing costs right now. They want 5K, 10K, 15K. They want lots of repairs. And by the time that this seller actually pays that anywhere between 8 to 10%, I've actually seen it as high as 12% to sell your home. By the time they pay all those fees, they're actually left with stroking a check.
And the 8 to 10%, is that on the purchase price, like what they just like?
Correct. If you're selling the home at $300,000, let's do simple numbers. If you're selling the home, this home at $300,000, that means that you're going to pay $30,000 in fees. 30K in fees, right? Roughly in fees you're going to pay to sell this home right here. A lot of times these sellers are in positions where they have no equity or they're in a pre-foreclosure. Yeah. So the third way that an individual can sell their home. So remember this. Loan mod, most sellers don't know about, right? They don't know that's an option. Agent, 99.9% of sellers, when they go to sell their home, they're going to hire an agent. That agent's going to be anywhere between 8 to 10% after commissions, after fees. The third way is investor. Mr. Investor, which is me, okay? I'm going to get really good at my stick figures here. Okay? Mr. Investor comes in and myself and the seller are able to now negotiate and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I've approached you. I see your property's in arrears. I see you're in a financial position where this property is a burden to you. Even though that this seller got approved for a loan modification, and this is a real scenario, guys. She figured after she got approved for the loan modification, she actually was still in a financial position to where she felt like, I can't take on the financial burden of this home. I can't keep cutting the grass. I can't keep paying the $2,600 a month. Because remember, this is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So me as the investor, I can actually come in and take over the property subject to. Matt, let me ask you a question really quick. If you were to go to Walmart and you were to buy a cart of groceries and you're walking out and a police officer walked up to you, or maybe an employee walked up to you and they said, hey, excuse me, sir, stop. Show me that you own those groceries. What would you show them?
A receipt.
You would show them a receipt.
Yeah.
So in real estate, we call that the deed. So we call this the deed, this document, ownership. When I'm buying a property via SubTo, the cool thing is I don't have to get qualified. I don't have to show any credentials. I don't have to show my credit score. I don't have to show income verification. If you've purchased a home before, you know how invasive it is trying to get a pre-approval. So like Matt said, the deed in real estate is the receipt to the transaction. So the underlying mortgage on this property is $342,000, 4.75% interest rate. Cool, I get to take that over. FHA loan, I didn't have to get approved for an FHA loan. And the payment is $2,600 a month. This seller in 2022, right? This seller in 2022 ended up buying this home. She was in a position to where she was in pre-foreclosure, and even though that her arrears got bought out and added to the back of the loan as a silent second, by doing a loan modification, she still felt like she could not afford the payments, even though she tried to make it work. It could have been a job change. It could have been she got fired from her job. It could have been maybe a family member died, or maybe she needs to move across the country. She was in a position to where not only was she in a pre-foreclosure situation, she was actually in a low equity situation. So she had a double whammy. There's only two reasons why somebody's going to sell to you via SubTo: low equity or a pre-foreclosure. So me as the investor, I'm able to come in and take over the payment on this property at $2,600 a month. And you would think, why would I want to do this strategy in today's climate? That's because if I was to go down to the bank today, let's call it Chase, Bank Chase, right? They're going to tell me, hey, Mr. Javier, you're going to have to put 15, 20, upwards to 30% down for an investment property, and I'm subjective to taking their bank rates. Right now for an investment loan, it's anywhere between 7 to 8.5% right now, interest rate. Me as an investor, this is not attractive for me because the debt service on the property, if I was to buy it at 7 and 8%, is way too high. Not only that, life's all about velocity of money. I do not want to put down a down payment of 20 to 30%, depending on the bank, depending on the loan product, right? There's a lot of variables there. So if I go down to Bank Chase, they're going to say, hey, Javier, I want you to put down 7 to 8.5%, depending on your credit score. There's a lot of variables to that, depending on what the market is doing that day. And then we want you to put down 20 to 30%. Why would I do this route as an investor when I can actually come here and work and strike out a deal? Me as the investor, I can work out a deal with this seller as the investor and say, you know what? Hey, Susie, I know that you're in a position to where you're low equity, and if you were to sell your property with an agent at 8 to 10%, you would be stroking a check. Even though you did a loan mod, that's great and all, and I know that you're in a position to where you cannot continue to make that $2,600 payment a month. Me as an investor, why this is financially advantageous for me to take over is because did I have to qualify for a 4.75 interest rate? No. Did I have to qualify for an FHA loan? No. Guess what? And I'm taking over the $2,600 a month payment. Now, a lot of you guys are probably wondering, and this is why I asked Matt a second ago, if I was to show up to the property and a police officer came to the property and he said, hey, sir, the neighbor just called the cops here. We're here at the property. Hey, they said that they've never recognized you before. What are you doing at this property? I can show them the deed to the transaction and show them that I'm the owner. So in real estate, think of the deed as the receipt. I'm actually able to get the deed transfer over into my entity. So right now it's in Susie Q's name, and it actually gets transferred over to my entity's name, whether that's a trust or an LLC. And I'm now the owner of the property. The note and the mortgage on the property, which is this up here, this is all the terms on the property right now. I didn't have to qualify for any of this stuff. And the note and the mortgage actually stays in place against this property. Susie Q is the one who qualified for it. But the beauty about this is I'm actually able to come in and take over a 4.75 interest rate. Wouldn't you say that's pretty awesome, Matt? Like right now, you're at 7 to 8.5% interest rate at a regular traditional bank.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Phenomenal, yeah.
Right? So I'm saving a lot of money, and my debt service is a lot lower versus me going to get a bank loan, taking one bank loan and paying off her bank loan, right? And a lot of times, remember, if she got the agent involved, she's not going to be able to sell her property with that agent because she would be stroking a check. Susie Q's already said, hey, look, I got my hands up, the towel's in. That's it, the towel's in. Yes, I got approved for the loan modification, and they took over my $32,000 in arrears, but where am I at? I'm in a position to where, you know what, even though that's behind on the loan and I have to pay that whenever I sell the home, I still can't make this $2,600 a month payment because we all know as a homeowner, you have leaky toilets, you got AC units, you got roofs, you got lawn to cut, you have all these capital expenditures over time, and she said to herself that I cannot afford this anymore. Now, I always tell people, if you want to be able to get these deals, the best way to get them is you can pull list, or we can keep this super simple. You can actually go up to agents who've been on the market for 100 days or less, and if you use propstream.com, okay? If you use a website called PropStream, you can see the equity position that this person has. Let's say Susie Q for an example. The reason why I say 100 days more on the market, and the agents are everywhere, by the way, right? You can go on Zillow, you can go on MLS. These agents, 100 days on the market, they're not getting any showings. They're in a position to where if this property doesn't sell, they're not making any money. So think about the time, the money, the marketing expense that this agent has, right? Because at 100 days, this agent here actually has pain, right? So the agent, not only does the seller have pain, but the agent has pain because they've listed this property and they haven't been able to sell it for Susie Q. So the two reasons why someone is going to do a property and sell it to you via subject to, it's because they're in pre-foreclosure or low equity. This in particular seller was actually in that exact same position. One of the other cool things I love about these deals is this deal, Susie Q, who owned the property, let's call her Susie Q, me, Mr. Investor, I actually was able to come in, and my entry cost for this deal was $12,000 for this deal. Entry cost. $12,000. I had to pay out of the $12,000, it was broken down just like this. I had to pay an assignment fee of $6,000. This went to the wholesaler. Okay? $6,000. I paid out of this $12,000, which is total entry, $12,000. I paid $6,000 to the wholesaler. Funny enough, Susie Q was in a position to where she actually got paid $3,000. So she walked away from her home. She didn't have to stroke a check. She got paid $3,000 to now sell her home to me, Mr. Investor, who now took over the financial burden, right? And then another agreement that we made was I would have to pay the upcoming PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So we closed, I think it was mid-month, and I was coming up on the first payment for her property, okay? And I had to pay that, which was $2,600. So I was actually in this deal all in, and this was just for the acquisition of the deal. This is meaning like I acquired the property. What did it cost me to acquire the property? It cost me a total of It cost me a total of $12,000 plus I had to pay that first month of PITI, principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So it was 12, that's 14, $14,600 this deal cost me. $14,600. This is the total entry, what this deal really cost me. $6,000 went to the seller. We paid $6,000 went to the wholesaler. We paid the seller a few $1,000s, and then I paid that upfront PITI that I agreed to pay. Remember, the beauty about this is Mr. Bank Chase would have told me, hey, Javier, if you were to buy this home, which the value of this home was about $380,000, okay? They would have told me I would have had to put 15 to 20%. You can't get an investment product for less than 15%. You're going to pay a minimum of 15%. You're going to pay upwards of 20, maybe even 25%, depending on the loan product, depending on the variables. There's so many different variables. So the cool thing is here is I'm able to buy this property not only at a 4.75 interest rate, which is right here, I'm also able to purchase this property for very little money down. Now, every scenario is not like this. Some of my entry fees are $20K, some of them are $30K, some of them are $40K. But the cool thing about this is we actually created a win-win-win scenario. And actually, think about the amount of people who got paid on this deal. We got the seller, they got paid. So the seller won because I now took over their property. She now wiped her hands clean. She said, Javier, take the keys. Guess what? My property sold. I don't want to deal with it. The seller got paid. The wholesaler got paid. The title company got paid. The insurance company got paid. The internet company got paid.
The bank got paid.
The bank got paid. Who else got paid, Matt? Am I missing anybody? I mean, the list goes on, right? You get what I'm saying. All these people got paid out of this one transaction. So you got to think, if you can create a win-win scenario, you'll be able to take these deals down all day long. And if you're watching this, drop a comment and let me know if you're an investor and you have always invested the traditional way and you have that broken mindset of saying, hey, you know what? I have to use Bank Chase to go out and buy my properties. Don't worry, because I was actually in that same exact position years ago. When I first started building my portfolio, I actually used loans at 15, 20% down to start building my portfolio. But once you start seeing that and how effective buying a property subject to, right, you become a lot more effective in your real estate investing career, right? With real estate agents, if you're watching this and you understand this strategy, we actually call you unicorn agents. If you're a real estate agent, you don't understand this strategy, and maybe you're in a position to where, you know, we're in funny times right now. We're in 2024 when I'm making this video right in front of you, and we're in a funny market, right? If you think that right now your bank account is going lower and lower every month because you're not getting real estate sales, you should be taking advantage of this type of strategy because you guys are the front lines with a lot of these sellers. A lot of times these sellers are running to you guys because you are the front lines. They don't know that they can get a loan mod. They don't know that they can work with an investor like myself and skip working with you guys who are agents. So you as an agent, if you want to learn this exit strategy, if you click the description below and you join my school community, you'll see that every single week I actually deep dive with my students on deals just like this. This is a real deal that happened recently. But the best thing about this is if you're in a position where you're like, you know what? My listings aren't moving. I'm not making the money I was making because the market's weird. It's just you just don't have enough tools in your tool belt. And that's okay because I was in that position just like you were. The thing is, we need to get you up to speed and get you understanding creative finance. And if you're looking at this video, look at your recent HUD statement that you close on any of your traditional real estate transactions. And I want you to look at the HUD statement. I want you to look at line 203. I didn't create the HUD statement. This is a document on there. It says subject to. The reason why I'm bringing up the HUD statement right now is because if you look at line 203, you will see on there, this is the government document. I didn't create that. This is a standardized document that closing companies use. Line 203 says subject to. On that line, when you're doing these transactions, you're going to see that you've taken over the deal via subject to at $242,000. Now, if you're a real estate agent or you're an investor, if you start investing in these type of deals, you'll start noticing how actually easy they are. And right now, it might be a little bit foreign to you, but what I want you guys to do, drop in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Do you like subject to? Do you not like subject to? Do you think subject to is the future? Or why is subject to so prevalent right now? One of the reasons why is because we are in a climate to where interest rates are very high, debt service on properties are very high, and unfortunately, sellers like Susie Q isn't able to sell her home because she's in a pre-foreclosure or she's in a low equity situation. The beautiful thing about this is, if you get approached by these individuals, you actually will have the tools in your tool belt, like I do, to be able to structure these deals properly without you having to be on the market for 100 days plus. So you have to ask yourself, from a time efficiency standpoint, do you want to be on the market 100 days plus, doing countless amount of showings, which probably you're not getting showings because you're not able to price aggressively enough? And I always tell people, Matt, in the market that we're in, we all know, and even any market that we're in, one of the main drivers that actually sells a property is pricing. You have to price the property aggressively enough. Marketing is secondary, but if you're not priced aggressively enough, and what ends up happening, Matt, is at $380,000, the agent can't continue to price reduce it because they're having to pay 8 to 10% to sell their home. So when we can create a win-win situation, and let's say the wholesaler wasn't involved on this deal and who got paid $6,000, and you're the listing agent and you're actually bringing me these deals, or maybe you have a partner that you want to partner up with and bring these deals to, we're actually able to get you paid. So the incentive for you is A, you can either take these deals down as a real estate investor and start putting your real estate investor hat on and start building that portfolio. Or B, you can come up to people like me, Javier, and say, you know, Javier, I got this seller. I'm working with her. She's about 30, 40K in arrears. Man, by the time she pays my real estate commissions, the closing costs, etc., we're actually not able to provide a solution for her. So are we able to create a win-win situation? You guys can bring me these deals all day long. We're actually happy to make a win-win situation and get you paid. So in the environment that we're in, if you're an agent, you actually can get so many more closings and get another tool in your tool belt, which is subject to, and you're more effective. So if you guys think that this strategy is super effective, or you're a real estate investor and you're like, you know what, I've been looking at this strategy, I didn't understand this strategy, drop me a comment below, let me know what you guys think, and let me know on the next one, are you gonna start investing into subject to deals and start taking these down as a real estate investor or a realtor who wants to add another tool in your tool belt? Do me a favor, guys. If you thought that the value that I gave you today about breaking down what a subject to deal is and how you could properly execute on it and where the pain points are, drop me a like and subscribe and click on the description below, and I'll see you guys on the other side.